Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I hope this video finds you well. It has been another long gap between posting videos and it doesn't feel great. I have certainly missed creating in general as well as chatting with all of you, so today's video is going to be more of a casual catch-up as I let you all know about some recent and upcoming changes. While we're chatting, I have a painting for you to watch come together. This was actually painted and filmed back in May of 2021, so I'm quite late in posting it given that it is now March of 2022. Whoops. Hopefully you all will enjoy watching it regardless, and I'll touch more on the actual painting process a bit later on in the video. Alrighty, a couple of disclaimers before we get into things. As a warning for those of you who are not in a place emotionally or mentally to handle anything really heavy right now, I want to give you a heads up that I'm about to go into a pretty depressing recap of what's been going on over the past 2 years, but I have timestamped the video in case you want to skip it. I do promise that we will end up on a positive note by the end of the video, so stick with me if you can. Secondly, I'm not putting any of this into a video to garner sympathy or because I feel like I have to explain where I've been in my absence. I am definitely ready to share what I've been going through as well as claw my way out of a bit of depression, especially if sharing that helps someone else feel less alone if they're going through something similar. With all that said, let's go ahead and get the really dark stuff out of the way first. 2020 didn't start off well for me. Even before the world was about to turn upside down, I had 2 very impactful relationships in my life abruptly end. And then my father, who I haven't had a relationship for most of my adult life and we were just starting to reconnect, died in March of 2020, right as the first wave of lockdowns hit. In terms of the big stuff, a year later, in February of 2021, we survived a traumatic and displacing winter storm here in Austin, and then in July, I had to have surgery, which took longer than anticipated to recover from, even using an overly cautious timeline. Aside from these major events, I also have a number of chronic health issues in general. My biggest fear over the last couple of years has been about what long-term effects might result from contracting this new virus that we're all facing. For this reason, I have essentially continued to live in lockdown mode for the last 2 years. I haven't seen my family since the end of 2019, including being unable to grieve with them in person over my father's death. I rarely see my friends in person. I haven't been to a grocery store in at least 1.5 years since the area that I live in lifted mask mandates in the summer of 2020, and I can count the number of hugs that I've given and received in the same amount of time on my hands, which is not great for someone who loves hugs. I recognize that in many ways I am extremely privileged to have had the option to lock myself away for my physical safety when I know that that is not an option for everyone who wants to do that. I am so grateful that I transitioned my job fully online before all of this hit, and I never take that for granted. Along those lines, for each and every one of you who has watched one of my videos, taken a class on Skillshare, or directly supported me on Patreon, I truly cannot express my gratitude for the relative peace of mind that you've given me during this really impossible time for so many people. I also have the most incredible friends and family, and I truly could not have made it through all of this without their love and support. And we have weekly online D&D games with the aforementioned friends, and that has really provided a sense of community, a form of escapism, and a creative outlet that my brain is able to actually cope with. However, living otherwise entirely alone, aside from the company of my cat, has been a daily isolating struggle that has left me entirely drained of emotional, physical, and creative energy. And if I'm being completely honest with all of you, it also drains me of my general will to be alive for a not inconsiderable amount of time during 2021. The days and weeks all kind of blend together. I lived on prepackaged food and takeout in a very messy, overcluttered apartment, and I could barely take care of myself on most days. But In short, it's not been good or fun, but obviously I chose this because it is preferable to me than the possibility of ending up with some long-term disability compounded on top of all my other issues. That is really quite terrifying to not know what's going to happen. Anyway, so we are all caught up to my last video when you heard from me back in October, which, despite the lack of content that you've seen from me since then, was actually a really big turning point for me behind the scenes. For my birthday, my two Austin besties and I went cabin camping in the woods about an hour outside of the city, and oh my goodness, I needed it so bad to offer some perspective. Moving to Austin in 2019 was a huge risk for me in many ways. It was my first time living somewhere other than my home state of California. I was moving to a new state all alone. I was seeking financial independence since I wasn't able to achieve that where I lived before, and I was looking for a fresh reset on life in general. Austin very well could have been that for me if 9 months into living here, the world didn't go and implode. It's not just the threat of this additional long-term disability that weighs really heavily on me. The political climate here is so much more hostile in recent years than I could have anticipated. I don't live in and still can't afford to move to a safer neighborhood. So getting outside on the days that I am feeling well is really difficult, and so few people here wear masks, and by here I am referring to the most liberal city in Texas, let alone anywhere else in the state. The lack of empathy for at-risk individuals throughout all of this has been really deafening, and I really haven't felt safe for years. I wanted to just bury my head in the sand and write it out. Moving is not inexpensive, and when I moved here, that was it. Mentally, I told myself I was in it for the long haul, period. But after losing 2 years of my life to very valid fear and worsening anxiety with no end in sight, I have made another difficult decision. I am leaving. While I know I will still face hardships anywhere I choose to live, life does not need to be this hard. The Pacific Northwest was on my short list of places that I was looking to move back in 2018 and 2019 when I was originally doing research. I chose not to move there at the time because I didn't have very good friends in the area, and a local support system is very important to me living with chronic illness. I know several people who live in the area now though, so with that barrier down, I'm doing it. The redwoods and the coast and the mist have been howling my name consistently for years and have only been getting louder. I just feel it in my bones that this is the right decision for me, and for the first time in years, I have not only the will to move myself forward, but also excitement for doing so. We all have what-ifs in life, and Austin will always be a big one for me. What if the world didn't stop turning back in early 2020? What if I had been able to continue going out and enjoying more of what Austin has to offer? What if people just cared more about other people and would wear masks so that I could actually leave my house without having a panic attack? But one what if I don't have to wonder about is what if I had just moved to Oregon right off the bat in the first place, because I don't want to know that answer. In my short time in unhindered Austin, I met some of the best people and made the most amazing friends, and I'm so glad that I did so before everything went down. After the cabin camping trip, my closest friends here even invited me to spend both Thanksgiving and Christmas with their small family. Everyone quarantined beforehand to make sure we were all safe, and they made me feel more welcome than I ever could have wished for, and I never expected a second adoptive family out here, and they've just been wonderful. These are also the same friends that helped to rescue me and my pets during the storm last year, the same friends that I played D&D with nearly every week in multiple campaigns because we just can't get enough of each other's company, and the same ones that will be helping me get to the next chapter of my life as well. Which is a great segue into what is coming up next for me, a road trip. After packing everything up in a pod at the end of this month, taking Cricket to stay with another friend here in Austin for a couple of weeks, and packing up the car with anything that I will need for the next couple of months, the three of us are headed on a nearly 2-week road trip out to the West Coast. We're going to stop and see national and state parks along the way. We're going to take some time to reflect outside of the city and eventually end up on the Oregon coast. Once we arrive, I will fly back to Austin with them, grab Cricket, and fly back to an Airbnb that I have reserved for the next month while I figure out where I am headed next. I really didn't want to have to sign a lease without knowing where specifically I wanted to end up, and I was unwilling to do more travel than is necessary to do research beforehand. I'm staying a ways outside of Portland where I can hopefully take things in slowly and really get in tune with what I want to see for myself happening in the foreseeable future. Nearly all of the new year for me has been focused on both my mental and physical health and getting ready for this really big change. Whereas last year I barely had the energy to microwave a frozen meal, I have been drinking around 100 ounces of water a day and cooking 2 to 3 meals a day for the last 2 months. I carefully tracked my nutrition for most of January while trying to combat high blood pressure with a low sodium diet. And in early February, I decided to take that one step further and now am eating almost entirely plant-based, nutrient-dense foods. It hasn't solved all of my health problems, but it is certainly helping me to feel more like myself again, finally. I am also on a really big decluttering kick. When I moved out to Texas, I thought that the solution to my living arrangements is that I needed more space. I wanted to have a dedicated studio and a 2-bedroom apartment, and I achieved that for myself. And bonus, I ended up with a small yard too. However, the reality is that I can't keep up with a space this big on my own. Maintenance is so hard for me in my limited spoons, and I don't have any help from other people. Ultimately, I didn't need more space, I needed less stuff. That was a really hard pill to swallow as a person who is emotionally attached to my things. I have a long way to go before the pod gets here, but I have joined a no-buy group online and gotten rid of a bunch of usable things that I know I don't need anymore, but that hopefully someone else can put to good use. I have a big pile of things that I know I need to list on Marketplace to try and sell, and I was even able to rehome a lot of my extra art supplies with patrons. And you know what? It feels really good. It feels like a massive weight has been lifted off of my chest. 10 out of 10 would recommend. I know it's different from what we mostly hear in the art community, but less stuff has really been a good change for me. I thought about trying to film a lot of the decluttering process, as I know that can be helpful for some people to see, but honestly, this was a catharsis that I really needed for myself to take by myself. As a content creator, if I can still call myself that, there's this underlying drive to monetize all the things and to create all the content, but this one I gave myself a pass. Like I mentioned earlier, the reason that I'm sharing any of this is that I am finally ready to share why I've been away for so long over the last 2 years, and I do hope that it's helpful for anyone else who's going through a similar struggle. While I won't be filming the decluttering, the packing, or much of the road trip, I'm still happy to converse with all of you in the comments, whether that be sharing resources or sharing some gentle encouragement if you need someone in your corner. I do truly look forward to sharing more of those good vibes all around and eventually get you a new studio space tour, though I doubt it will be a dedicated room this time around. I am sorry that I never got around to filming a proper studio tour here over the last 3 years while I actually had nice spaces. It's a bummer, but it is what it is. If you would like to see more from me and the move over the next couple of months, you can follow me on my personal Instagram at Denise Things. And if you would like to help out, and you can do so without being financially burdened, please keep your own finances first. I am currently running a sale over in the Etsy shop. Everything is 20% off, including this original painting and many others. I only ever sell originals with a discount when I need to raise funds for a move or big bills, so if you're looking to pick one up, now is a really great time. So let's finally talk about this art. I first painted a red panda back in 2015 when I was just getting started with watercolors. The one that you all know from my channel icon was painted a year later in 2016. This one was supposed to be a current look at my process and style, but it was painted almost a year ago, so oh well, what can you do? For this version, I went with an earlier color palette, which I'm pretty sure consists of quinacridone burnt orange from Da Vinci, piemontite genuine from Daniel Smith, and shadow violet from Roman Schmal. But my memory is a garbage pile, so take that with a grain of salt. I chose the earthier palette to reflect my growing preferences for earth tones over the years, which was definitely a change from the time that I painted the 2016 version, when I preferred transparent, non-granulating colors. However, I do admit that this particular combination that I'm using now could be seen as a bit too heavy or subdued. I believe that all three paintings were painted on Arch's cold press watercolor paper. This one was painted using silver black velvet brushes, but I don't know what the other two were painted with since it was before I started filming for YouTube. In 2015, I was just learning what I could do with watercolors, so that piece was really an exploration of colors and washes. The structure of the animal's face has almost no basis in reality, except for the fact that its nose is somewhat pointed, which we will kind of lose in the next version. I was also testing out masking fluid for the whiskers, which I really don't love. They are thicker and more rigid than when they are painted with gouache, like the second and third versions we'll see. The second version in 2016 was a repaint for myself to push what I had learned about washes and texture. There's a better foundation in the drawing here, but it's not without its flaws. The face is very round, and the snout is not as pointed as it should be. The eyes are too big, though that does add a cuteness factor. However, the ears are rounder and fluffier as they should be, and the background is just chef's kiss in terms of the way that the playful washes, splotches, splatters, and drips all interact with each other. I love this color palette in this piece as well, and it brings a richness and slight moodiness that I really enjoy. The third version that you're seeing here today is the most realistic of them, though that might also be too realistic based on your personal preferences. I could totally understand someone saying that the eyes read as too beady and aren't as cute as the last version. Technically speaking, though, I can absolutely see the growth in skill when it comes to the details between the previous version and this one. As I mentioned earlier, the colors do feel a bit heavy, and I'm already thinking about ways that I might want to change things for the next time around that I try and attempt it again. That is just about going to do it for today. Thank you all so much for still being here after my unplanned hiatus and for listening to me ramble as I caught you up on all the things that have been going on as of late. If you would like to own this painting or one of my other originals, remember you can find them over on Etsy at 20% off now through mid-March of 2022. I will be closing my entire Etsy shop sometime around March 20th for the move, and it will stay closed until I have a new apartment somewhere on the other end of this whole adventure, which could be as late as midsummer. I also would love to not have to pack a bunch of prints and stickers and zipper bags, so if any of those strike your fancy, they are also 20% off while the shop is open. If you would like to see more content from me while I'm away and aren't already a patron, you can find over 110 previously recorded real-time tutorials and live streams over on Patreon for $5 a month. And I would like to thank my amazing patrons for helping to keep me on my feet over the last couple of years. I am so excited for this next adventure, and I really look forward to finally healing and creating once again and sharing all of that with you. Until next time, happy painting.